All right. As I said, this is the short and sweet workshop of the Focus on Fulbright series. We're going to be talking about the short answer questions that are part of a Fulbright application. The goals of our session are to understand the requirements and the style of the Fulbright short answer questions, your abstract, the host community engagement, and your plans upon return. And then we'll also do some brainstorming of content for your short answer questions. So we already did our check-in just to see how everyone's doing in the process. Y'all are doing good, so A+ on that. So what we'll talk about today is we're going to do a little bit of welcome. This is the welcome. Then we'll do a free write. So I hope you brought your pens and paper. We'll do a little bit about the abstract and summary proposal, give you a couple of examples, do another free write, host country engagement, and you guessed it, a free write. And then finally, plans upon return to the US, a free write, and then some reminders before we let you go for the evening. So first, free write. So I'm going to ask you to get out your pen and paper, and I want you to describe the moment that you decided to apply for Fulbright. Was there a specific event or experience that changed things for you? What made you feel ready to take that step? So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. I'm going to put on my timer. Give you 3 minutes to think about what made you decide to apply for Fulbright and to write about that moment. So as we're starting to think about the different short answer questions, again, there are 3 questions, and the first is the abstract or the summary of your proposal. So that is going to be where you basically tell Fulbright the short and sweet version of what you're hoping to do, who you're hoping to do it with, and why you're hoping to do it and how it connects to kind of everything that you're planning to do, your experiences, all of that. Basically taking everything and condensing it into a paragraph. So for study research, they want you to tell them the what, the where, and the why of your proposed project. So again, kind of giving a short summary of what you're going to tell them, because remember, these questions are going to come up first in the proposal. So it's a little bit of a teaser trailer for your Fulbright application as a whole. So seeding some of those ideas that you can then expand on later in your application. For ETA folks, this is where you can talk about why you want to be a Fulbright ETA and why you chose that particular country. So you're proposing an ETA, why, and where. And so the best abstracts summarize, they don't repeat. So try not to repeat the same phrasing or the same words too much from your other documents, because sometimes that can get repetitive, and it's kind of weird to read the same sentence more than one time in an application. So don't let that be you. The thesaurus is your friend, and also, of course, having people look over it can be really helpful. The best abstracts are concise. They don't go on very long, not that they can. You have a 1,000-character limit, and that includes, I think that includes spaces and periods, things like that. So they aren't going to give you a ton of space, but again, you want to make sure that you're being very concise, to the point, very focused in your abstract. Are memorable in that they are basically telling them what you're hoping to do and why, and are very, again, compelling reasons for seeking a Fulbright, and really kind of giving the highlights of what your proposal is. And then again, remember the audience. So when you're writing your Fulbright proposal in general, but definitely the abstract, is that you are speaking to both folks from the US and from your host country. So the first round of review will be US reviewers, of US selection panel. And so they may be familiar with any kind of cultural context you may be using, or if you're using certain terms or referring to certain events, they may be more familiar with that, as opposed to the host country, making sure that if there's anything that's specific to the US, like I had someone talking about, what is it, or even to your discipline, they're talking about the Lean Six Sigma belt. I don't know. It's apparently a very, very prestigious business certification. But again, even being in the US, I didn't know that. So making sure that you're defining any terms that might be a little bit confusing for your audience. So the second round your proposal will be reviewed by a mixed panel of host country representatives and the US. So just make sure that you're tailoring that for both audiences. So what does this look like in practice? Because it's, again, pretty abstract. All right, so some examples. So these are for research. Research proposals, again, tend to be pretty straightforward, pretty to the point. So the first one says, I propose to work with Dr. Urban Tillman at the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany, researching azedinium, a genus of toxic phytoplankton responsible for human intoxications. It's important to know this because of the variable ocean factors affecting the growth of these organisms, and they affect economically vital shellfish industries and pose a threat to human health worldwide. Again, it tells you what the proposal is, who they're proposing to do it with, and why it matters. Especially with research, but with any Fulbright application, the more you can connect it to kind of the larger global issue that you're contributing your knowledge to solving, the better. So if you have any kind of tie-ins, for example, sustainability or exercise science, public health, that's something that is good to kind of connect to the bigger picture. Another example, the student was applying for a Fulbright study research grant to conduct research in Brazil under the guidance of Dr. Vanessa Riambo. They will study Afro-Brazilian culture, particularly literature and music, and will place my findings into dialogue with African-American texts in order to investigate the similarities and differences in identity formation through the African diaspora and challenge the idealization of Northeastern Brazil as a racial democracy. So again, specific, very clear as to why this individual needs to go to Brazil, because they're searching and researching identity formation of Afro-Brazilians. So again, the more you can kind of connect to that host country and why that host country, the better. So that's research. Just an example of study. This one's a little bit long, so I highlighted the appropriate parts, the pertinent parts. So they say what they're going to do, obtain their master's in public health. They say why that's interesting, unique, or special. They're an institution in the Russell Group that encompasses one of the world's leading public health research institutes. So again, emphasizing that why here. The classes are taught by world experts who partner directly with these national and international organizations. The program is conducted in Cardiff, which will make connecting to refugee and aid organizations more accessible to increase my understanding of their individual needs and experiences. So that's a good one, especially for study, to look at the environs of the university as well as the programs and see if there's something that you can connect with there. I've seen this being a connection. I think I had one student that talked about like sailing culture or bicycle culture. So finding something that's a good connection point. The closer it is related to what you're hoping to do, the better. And again, this world-renowned institution pursues focus in childhood intervention to bolster health outcomes, is indispensable to my research interests and future career. So again, saying why this particular country, why this particular institution is important and a good fit for the applicant. And then finally, an ETA example, they want to go to South Korea for their ETA because of the blending of traditional and modern aspects of culture. South Korea is a country that is constantly moving forward with technological and architectural innovations, but yet there's still deference to the past that can be seen in the language itself, with how one addresses their elders or superiors. They hope to find connections between the Korean culture and Southern American culture on things such as strong familial connections and respect to elders. This experience will help me in the future as it will allow me to further expand my worldview while also honing my organizational, communicational, and interpersonal skills. The publishing industry, which is where this person wants to work, is very internationally focused. This opportunity would allow me to build lasting connections in Korea and supply with the tools to work in an international market. So that's important because for this particular student, teaching was not the end goal, but the spending of a year abroad teaching English is going to help them pursue their ultimate goal, and they've made that connection there. Does that make sense as to kind of what an abstract looks like, feels like, the kind of information that you should include? Awesome. All right. So now we have an idea of what an abstract is. How would you explain your Fulbright plans to a friend, a parent, a professor, or in your TED Talk? So take another 3 minutes and write down how you would explain your Fulbright plans to those different audiences, a friend, a parent, a professor, or on a stage in a presentation, or maybe at Discover USC if you want an example that's a little closer to home. So now that you've gotten this abstract kind of off the ground, kind of thinking about how you would communicate with others, I just want to kind of bring your attention back to the Fulbright Mad Lib. We did this in the Getting Started workshop with writing. So this is kind of a helpful formula that you can start off with if you're having some trouble getting your abstract together, especially. But this is basically a fill in the blanks for getting a start to your abstract. And then, of course, as you go through the rest of your application and you start to hone things, this can be helpful to get that process started. So again, I'm interested in doing thing in location because why? Give your reason. I'm prepared for Fulbright because of my experience and interest in field of study or research. Fulbright will help me gain skill set to pursue goal. So that's kind of the gist of the information you want to include in your abstract. And one other thing I don't think we mentioned about abstracts is that I know we're talking about this about midway through the process, but with abstracts, usually those are most helpful when they're one of the last things you write. Because at that point, you'll have all of your information from all of your essays together. You'll kind of know what the full package looks like, and then you can write the abstract or like the introduction to your application after you know exactly what it's going to be. So that's another tip for this is do a draft, but then expect to come back and edit that once you've gotten the rest of your application solidified. All right, so just a quick note about project title. This tends to throw people. So it does ask for a project title. And so for ETAs, if you're doing an English teaching assistantship, put English teaching assistantship. For research, they are looking for a descriptive project title. So for example, the threat of azadinium blooms in a changing climate. So that's going to be a more descriptive title about what your research is about. And then for study, your project title will be the name of your degree, Master of Science in Global Health at National Taiwan University, for example. So just giving you a hint there, because I know that there isn't much guidance on what to put there. So this will hopefully let you put the right thing for you. So let's talk about host country engagement. So host country engagement is basically trying to assess that citizen ambassadorship portion of Fulbright, really trying to get a sense of who you are and how you're going to interact with your community while you're abroad. So what you can do that is helpful for the committee to show them your interest engagement, your willingness, and your enthusiasm about serving as a citizen ambassador is to give specifics. Again, I know we talk about Fulbright being a lot about specifics. It doesn't have to be, again, something wildly inventive, but it has to make sense, and it has to you have to give a little bit of detail so that folks know what you're hoping to do. So that's an example of that is, so say you're into sailing and you found that there's going to be a sailing club at the university you're in. That's a great way to meet people and to, if you're learning a language, to pick up specific vocabulary. That's a great way to do it, is to join a club or an interest group. So that's something that you can connect with. If you are a singer, maybe you can join a choir and make new friends that way. So part of it is that kind of more social outreach. But also, as you'll see in a moment, if you have specific interests that are related to your Fulbright project, so say you are interested in, I don't know, like books, say you want to start a book club and that's related to your English teaching degree, that might be something that would be particularly good and particularly well received to include with this. And again, making the connection between like you, your host country, and what you hope this involvement will teach you and what you hope to teach others. And it does help to reflect a little bit on your own cultural background, your own like your own cultural beliefs and practices that you're bringing to this location as well, and some things that are unique about you. So like the one example was talking about comparing Afro-Brazilian culture with Southern American culture and the African diaspora. If you had some of that kind of information about your identity as a Southern American or a Northeasterner or a Midwesterner or whatever your kind of identity point is, that can be helpful if you can share that in a way that makes that connection. Do some research. So if you're interested in getting involved with dance studios, say, in a certain location, do some research, throw out some names, say, hey, I've already looked at X, Y, and Z dance studio and they offer classes for adults. Awesome. So again, doing a little bit of research will go a long way here. And bring it back to the Chat GPT. I mentioned that one time, well, not that one time, during our getting started workshop, I was actually playing around with it and I said, oh, some ideas for how to get involved in my community in Nepal. And I don't know if everything was true, but it spat out like 10 or 12 different ideas for how to get involved. And it was actually really helpful as a brainstorming tool. So don't be afraid to do that, or to think about what things you enjoy here on campus that maybe you could continue abroad, or something you've always wanted to try that you'll have the opportunity to. So again, do some thinking on that. And then, of course, relating it to the Fulbright mission, whether that is of building your knowledge, but especially building those mutual connections and understanding between peoples of the US and peoples of the host country. So again, that's kind of Fulbright's main goal. So the more you can connect your interests and your activities to that goal, the better. So what does this look like in practice? So for example, and I know with ETAs, it can be kind of tough sometimes to find like a specific interest area, but for the example, this person was very interested in the intersections of business and social or environmental impact. So they actually found a organizations both within their university they would be at, and then also like a national organization, Plastic Oceans Mexico. And they did a little bit of research, were able to tell what the organization was about and how they might possibly connect. They actually have a professional connection that already has ties to that organization. You may or may not have that, but that's a really great thing to add if you do. And then tying it back into the global nature of sustainability. And then as a cultural ambassador, my involvement in sustainability and impact focused organizations within Mexico City will emphasize the unity we need in tackling these challenging issues. So again, tying it back to that Fulbright mission. In a study example of this student was incredibly involved in on-campus activities, ranging from mentorship positions to linguistic research. And at their new university, they would hope to get more involved in Taiwanese journalism and having those conversations about Taiwanese representation in the American media and vice versa. And then also being involved with the Chinese Language Center to enhance language learning, to hopefully continue that sharing of resources. All right. So we are going to do another free write, this time about community engagement. So take a moment and think about and describe an activity that makes you feel the most like you. What do you love to do, either on campus, at home? What makes you feel the most like you? What is the activity and how did you discover that you liked it? Has that activity changed for you over time? So take 3 minutes and write a little bit on an activity that you really enjoy doing that makes you feel like you. All right, so the last short answer question we're going to talk about today is plans upon return to the US. So this is what you're going to be doing after you complete your Fulbright year. It's important to know that this is not a contract. They're not going to come after you in 5 years and be like, hey, you said you were going to be a doctor and you're not. We need our money back. They're very, very, very rarely going to do that unless you like outright were telling stories on your application that were not true. So it's not a contract. Give us your best guess of what you'll be doing in the next 5 to 10 years. And again, connecting it to why the Fulbright, like how the Fulbright is going to help prepare you for that future that you see for yourself. Keep it realistic. You're not going to go from getting a master's to being I don't know, president of the United States in 5 years, most likely. So definitely making sure that you're keeping it realistic and kind of talking through the process of how you're getting from Fulbright to whatever your end goal is. And that helps to think in short, medium, and long-term steps. So if you're going to get your master's degree overseas, maybe you come back and you are working with a consulting firm for a few years, and then you're going to go back for your PhD, and then you're eventually going to run for Congress. I don't know what your plans are, but giving that kind of short, medium, and long-term steps can be helpful in this section. And again, connecting back to Fulbright and how they're going to prepare you for those steps. What are some of the specific courses that you'll take that will help you out? You can kind of reference those again in shorter detail or shorter form here, and then more detail, of course, in the statement of grant purpose, but showing again how Fulbright is going to help you with that. Thinking back to the example of the student who wanted to go into the publishing industry, having connections in Korea, being able to speak Korean, being able to communicate in an effective way, like a teacher does, really helps prepare you for that. So again, connecting all back to why is Fulbright your next logical step. So for example, here's a couple of ETA examples. So this student hopes to combine the cultural, linguistic, and professional experience gained through this program with the pursuit of higher education in one of Europe's most esteemed business schools. So going from Fulbright to business school. When combined with the regional experience gained with this binational internship program, I'll be well prepared to pursue a career in international sustainability consulting upon my return to the US. So again, kind of giving those short, medium, and long-term steps. Another example, I plan to attend a master's program in international education and development to study how displaced students fit into educational structures and how to address their specific needs. They even name dropped a program at the University of Minnesota. I will use my time in Brazil to inform my academic study of literacy and language teaching. So again, connecting it to how the Fulbright is preparing you for these additional steps. For study, this person will pursue a career with a specialized organization such as Human Rights Watch or Global Investigative Journalism Network, and will connect to their time at Taiwan by focusing their reporting on issues related to Asia Pacific region. And for research, an example, the student is going as part of their research for their dissertation, so they'll finish that up and hopefully start a job as a professor, and they will share that research by teaching Brazilian culture in their new classes. So again, thinking about the ways that it connects and prepares you for those next steps. So, as you expected, another free write. So let's think through, why is Fulbright the next logical step for you? Again, you want to make it make sense between like, okay, what you're doing now and what you want to do, and why is Fulbright that perfect bridge for you? Or why is Fulbright a good bridge for you? It doesn't necessarily have to be like everything has to align, but again, making it logical, make it make sense for your reader. So what will you learn, create, or connect from your Fulbright experience to help get you to your mid or long-term goals? So take a few minutes and do some writing on those couple of questions. All right, so that concludes our formal program for this particular workshop. Again, I'm happy to hang on with additional questions, but just some reminders before we depart is that where we are in the process, make sure that you are opening your application in the Fulbright portal if you haven't already. And that's under applicants in the drop-down menu on the Fulbright website. It's a little bit tricky to find, but that will allow you to see the full application, start filling things in. And also, once I see you pop up in the Fulbright portal, I'll add you to the Teams channel that'll let you see those previous winning applications. And then July 1 is coming up. That is the deadline to submit at least a second draft. So if you already submitted multiple drafts, just keep on going of each of your essays, your personal statement, and your statement of grant purpose to your FPA if you've been assigned one, to me if not. And speaking of FPAs, July 1 is the final deadline to fill out your preliminary application to be paired with an FPA. After that date, you'll still be able to work with our office. You'll still have access to our fellowships advisors, but you won't have that one-on-one faculty mentorship for your application process. The next focus on Fulbright is going to be on July 18th. We're going to focus on the statement of grant purpose, diving deeper. So we'll be doing some peer review and some more like actual editing. So come with drafts. We'll send out more information as we get closer to that deadline, or not deadline, that workshop. And I know it's a little bit away, but we'll have that coming up. And then remember, of course, we are here to meet with you and provide feedback at any time. I know I'm on campus for most of the summer. I have a couple days here and there, but I'm not going to be in the office, or but I have other commitments, but I'm happy to meet either in person if you're in town or virtually if you're not. So make sure that you are taking advantage of that and meeting with our NF advisors who are working all summer. All right, and that concludes our official presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.